He was actually afraid to speak his mind. I wonder, is he ashamed of his performance at that panel?
I'm ashamed of my performance at that panel because I share your position 100%, and I'm proud. The idea of saying anything on this issue, what the trans movement is not asking for, they're not asking for,
What happens when late-night chaos collides with pop psychology and a hairstyle that screams intellectual mystery? Greg Gutfeld took that bizarre combination and swung a sledgehammer straight at Malcolm Gladwell and his overhyped 10,000-hour theory, like a comedian smashing a sacred idol on live TV. This wasn't just commentary. It was demolition comedy wrapped in sharp truth bombs. Gutfeld didn't simply criticize. He methodically dismantled Gladwell's polished world of selective storytelling and self-help mysticism. The best part? No one saw it coming. What started as a normal talk segment turned into a masterclass in comic destruction. A show that made cleverness look effortless and chaos look organized. Buckle up for this wild takedown.
You didn't? Because unlike those fake women, you have no nuts. By the way, it looks like Barber also was afraid to speak up. When Malcolm walked in and said, "I want to look like an exploding cigar." Listen, it's guts to admit a mistake. And we all have lapses in judgment. Sometimes after a few drinks, you go to sleep with a 10, but you wake up next.
If you enjoy this kind of madness, hit subscribe, because even that helps more than any of Gladwell's advice ever did. Gutfeld didn't just walk on stage. He entered like a man who'd been locked in a padded room, forced to listen to Malcolm Gladwell audiobooks on loop until he snapped, determined to free humanity from pseudo-intellectual torment. His mission was clear: liberate the world from the 10,000-hour prison. And he began by tearing that sacred rule to pieces.
Experiencing so many moments of honesty that wouldn't have happened if Trump hadn't won. Of his human truth serum. People come within a mile of him and they start to learn the beans. But if Kamala had won, people like Malcolm would have remained silent, terrified of losing status.
This is the same rule that convinced every failed guitarist and desperate artist that if they annoyed their neighbors long enough, they'd magically become Jimi Hendrix. Gutfeld laughed at the absurdity. He danced around Gladwell's logic like a pyromaniac with a joke lighter, setting fire to the myth that time automatically equals talent. He showed that the 10,000-hour theory was never a key to success, just a polite excuse for wasting time with purpose.
Him for coming clean. It takes a big man to admit when he's wrong. But Gladwell didn't. He just admitted he was weak. He portrays this situation as if a bad thing was done to him. He was cowed. No, he wasn't cowed. Cowed is what happens when you go to lunch with Joy Behar. Wait. And she demands to lick gravy off your...
It gave people a ready-made script to justify laziness. You could tell your parents, "I'm not slacking off, I'm incubating greatness." That was Gladwell's sales pitch, a perfect gospel for dreamers and procrastinators alike. And for years, it was treated as unshakable truth. People honestly believed genius was just a countdown away.
He is talking now is because it's safe. He's like the guy at a bar who waits until the bouncer breaks up the fight before he starts talking trash. So on one hand, I welcome him to the right side, but on the other, I was there the whole time. Others like him would share the risk. They didn't. They were too scared. And with each passive lie,
Then came Greg Gutfeld, the wrecking ball of smug certainty, who exposed that the emperor had no clothes. With surgical precision, he shattered Gladwell's thesis as if competing in the Olympic demolition games, and he'd have taken home the gold. Instead of attacking with dry data or academic jargon, he became a comedic hitman, slicing through pretension. Malcolm Gladwell, with his trademark hair, tried to defend his fragile kingdom of anecdotes. But when Gutfeld pulled just one brick from the foundation, the whole thing collapsed like a bargain bin Jenga set.
And his choice was to join the mob and then call out the brave folks. He hoped the alligator would eat him last, which may also be to lose pubic hair on his scalp. So in effect, he's simply telling us that he stopped a bad thing. He's like a drunk driver who wants credit for using his turn signal when he enters a place.
The crowd loved it because Gutfeld wasn't just targeting Gladwell. He was exposing an entire industry built on that flawed number, 10,000. Every coach, consultant, and motivational speaker practically owed Gladwell royalties for borrowing his illusion. But Gutfeld saw through it. He said Gladwell didn't provide knowledge. He sold shortcuts to people too afraid to face randomness. He mocked the idea that setting a timer and repeating scales could somehow make anyone a legend.
The panel. And here's a moment that happened on the panel. This is Joanna Harper in SOT 7C.
That if we let trans women compete in women's sport, then we have to let them win. Not win disproportionately, but win. That means.
So Joanna's saying we have to let trans athletes win. We must. If they're going to participate in the women's sport, let them win. And now Malcolm was there, and he just gave an interview to...
Reality doesn't follow spreadsheets. Sometimes talent just never shows up, and Gutfeld made that brutally clear. He accused Gladwell of profiting off the illusion that it did. People loved Gladwell for one reason. He made mediocrity sound profound. He made life look like a cheat code, as if 10 years of repetition and a good playlist could rewrite destiny. But Gutfeld tore that illusion apart like a furious parent discovering their kid majored in interpretive dance after a decade of tuition.
Still don't know who he is.
I don't need what you brainiacs call books. So
they him and I worked at the same place.
That must have been fun.
Yeah, 80s. We worked at the American Spectator.
Yeah, was his hair then?
I don't know. I only met him once.
It was hilarious because Gutfeld didn't just mock the theories. He treated them like cheap horoscopes. Vague, grand, and always positive. You will achieve greatness after great effort. Revolutionary, right? He joked that Gladwell just added math to a fortune cookie. 10,000 hours. A number so fake it felt scientific. Gladwell spent years building his empire of pop intellectualism, spinning quirky tales about hidden genius and overnight success. And Gutfeld burned it all down with laughter.
Talks about that moment with the benefit of hindsight in SOT 7B.
When they turned to you, Ross, and they said, Ross, you have to let us win. And it was at that moment that I realized this position has gone, this argument's gone to the furthest extreme. What the truth movement is not asking for, they're not asking for, a place at the table. They're not asking for to be treated with respect.
The idea that human brilliance could be bottled into neat little stories was the glitter coating on dull vegetables. Gutfeld admitted its charm but stripped away the illusion. Reading Gladwell, he said, didn't make people smarter. It made them smug, like someone bragging about finishing a Sudoku on an airplane. It was a relentless roast. And when Gladwell's fans tried to clap back, Gutfeld mockingly pretended to be shocked that people still read books that made mediocrity fashionable.
Couple hours ago, and he said to me, this is a tough show, the topics are really thin. What did you have a problem with this topic? What's your problem with it?
I think I have a question.
Yes.
Any member of the audience may share, and people in the audience and those watching home. Who the hell is Malcolm Gladwell?
He joked about knowing Gladwell back in the day when they both wrote for the American Spectator, tossing in jabs about hairlines and 80s nostalgia. But then came the twist. Gutfeld clarified that this wasn't just random roasting, it was satire with purpose. The real comedy, he said, lies in society's obsession with simple answers and mechanical optimism. Our addiction to rules that pretend to make success measurable.
From last week, where he said, for the listening audience that didn't hear us play it a couple ago, he admitted that he moderated a panel a couple years ago and that he intentionally misled on his own feelings when he suggested boys should be allowed to play in this if they say they're trans. And now he hasn't turned since then. He hasn't you see the error of his ways, that he was actively lying about opinion at the time in order to not be, ostracized by the crowd.
Things got even funnier when Gladwell's defenders jumped in, arguing like fans defending pineapple on pizza. They clung to the idea that they were just 10,000 hours away from greatness. The absurdity was complete. It became its own punchline. Gutfeld's brilliance wasn't just in the humor but in the revelation. He wasn't roasting Gladwell alone. He was dismantling an entire self-help culture that sells recycled hope as a product.
They'll destroy you.
Mm-hmm.
But if you are constantly saying things they don't like, they kind of ignore you after a while.
They have
Get
to.
away,
They have to. I learned
what
that.
can they do?
Yeah. They used to come after me every day, and I just exhausted them.
Right, and it's like with my tweets, it's like you can go through my tweets. It's like, go ahead, try to cancel that.
He mocked the formulaic system, the flashy covers, catchy titles, and oversized fonts screaming, "You're only 5 chapters away from enlightenment." If repetition made perfection, every office worker fluent in Excel would be the Beethoven of spreadsheets. Spoiler, they're not. Gutfeld ridiculed that fake precision, comparing it to a $50,000 motivational plan built on fortune cookie wisdom. Your boss doesn't hate you, he just hasn't recognized your 10,000-hour potential. He said people bought Gladwell's fantasy and turned it into a religion, one corporations and schools eagerly spread, chasing a number that never meant anything. Gutfeld wasn't rejecting practice. He was exposing the lie that practice alone guarantees greatness. It was dark humor laced with brutal honesty. And the irony? The harder Gladwell's defenders fought, the funnier it got. Like defending a cake diet by claiming the sugar shows your dedication. Gutfeld highlighted that absurdity perfectly, showing how humans crave formulas to escape uncertainty. He replaced mystique with laughter, fake science with satire, and in the end his entire takedown became a long-lasting joke. Once you hear it, you can't unhear it.